I went to half day kindergarten.
Okay.
I went to school 85, which was the neighborhood school, literally 3 doors down from where we lived.
And what year was that?
Oh, 1982.
Okay.
So I just turned 5.
And School 85, what's it called? The name?
George B. Loomis.
Loomis?
Loomis, yeah.
Okay. So it was just a short walk away?
Right. And it's now closed and it's businesses now, but yeah.
It's a business now?
Yeah, it's several businesses. A guy bought it and he rents out, leases space to other businesses. It's a nice building. He did a good job.
And how did your parents choose it as a school?
They didn't. I mean, it was just the school we went to.
It was your neighborhood school?
It was the neighborhood school.
1982, that's how it was?
Right.
Okay. And then did you stay at that school throughout your kindergarten through whatever?
No. What happened is I had 2 older siblings. My oldest sibling was a difficult child, so he started there. And then because my parents had the money at the time, he went to Lourdes.
Okay, so that's a Catholic school?
Catholic school.
Okay.
And then they realized that he was gifted, so then they switched him to the AT program at School 99, which is still an IPS.
What was AT standing for?
Academically talented.
Okay, because now I hear GT. So
You're
I
right.
know AT.
Yeah.
So School 99 had an academically talented program, and then they knew that would work for him.
Right.
Or that was the plan.
That was the plan.
And he was older than you by a few years?
About 7.
Oh, okay.
So quite a few.
Are you the youngest?
I am.
And then brother?
My brother's the oldest, and then my sister is a year older than me. So if I was in 1st grade, she was in 2nd grade.
Okay. So you were at Loomis.
I was.
And even, pardon me?
Yep.
Okay. And then, so you had this experience where your brother the family tried out a Catholic school for him. All the while, did you stay at Loomis?
I did until the 4th grade.
Okay.
When I reached the 4th grade, I was marked as AT as well. So I went to the same school my brother had gone to, which is 99.
Okay.
And my sister stayed at Loomis. And then my brother, by this time, was in high school, I think. But then I went to 99 for 4th, 5th, and 6th grade.
Okay. And then after 6th grade, what happens?
I went to Forest Manor.
Forest Manor.
7th and 8th grade.
They call it junior high or do they call it middle school?
Junior high.
Because it was 7th and 8th.
Yep.
Because that's a foreign concept. And to me, because I grew up in a city of a lot of K through 8s.
Oh.
So, but I'm getting it. Junior high is 7, 8.
Yeah, and that's how it was back then. I mean, Shortridge was 7, 8. You know, there was Harshman was 7, 8. That's just how it was.
I did a little research and I remember seeing articles that would say, "Our middle school's the way, ours junior high the way."
Yeah.
You know, it's just like things haven't changed that much,
No.
I guess. And so then high school.
Yep, and then I went to Howe.
Okay, in all 4 years.
In all 4 years.
Okay, because I know there's a story there about
Yep.
closing and stuff. Okay, so going back to Loomis, so maybe before the AT program, do you have any strong memories from kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
You're so young. You've got lots of memories.
I've got lots of memories. I remember every teacher. I remember our librarian, Miss Fisher. I remember her because she had one of those. She had a weird eye that was kind of blinky all the time, and then she got it sewed, kind of down. So I remember her, and she had goldfish in the library. Mm-hmm. But I remember going to the library and sitting down and having her read to us.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the librarians still read to kids like that, but that's what we did. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what about the other teachers that you remember?
I remember all of them. I remember my 1st grade teacher, Miss Nelson, who wasn't very nice. But that's a perception,
Sure.
As a child.
It's your perception.
Yeah.
So how did you as a child perceive the not niceness? What made her not nice?
I think it was because she wasn't friendly. Because the other 1st grade teacher hugged her students.
Sure.
And we weren't hugged. So I think that's classified as not nice.
Yeah. Was it anything else about the experience of those years?
Well, just one. Something I remember that I always found very interesting, and it helps me when I think about perception of what kids are doing in school. Yeah. When I was in kindergarten, I remember very well there was a bulletin board that she had with pegs, and you had little washers. And there were stations around the room, and you got called up to the board, and you could put your washer on what station you wanted to go play at.
Oh, a station. Okay.
Yeah. So I remember we got a new workstation, like with a hammer and nails, but big ones. But we had safety glasses that we could wear. But I was never called to the board soon enough to pick that station because it was the most popular station. So in all of kindergarten, I was never at that station. So eventually I became very irritated, and I just didn't care what I did. And I remember going through my scrapbook about a year ago, reading my notes from teachers. And in there it said, Annie often does nothing during free time. And it was just funny to me that as a 5-year-old, I knew exactly why I was doing nothing. But I couldn't communicate that somehow to the adults around me I just want to do the station. I've never, had that opportunity.
And you saw it wasn't happening.
It wasn't happening. So I think when we hear, issues with our kids, we always think, what's the big problem? When in reality, it could be just a very small thing.
Yeah.
And how do we get to that answer of what it is?
And that'll be interesting when we talk to you. When we get to talk to you about being a parent, I'd like to wait to get there.
Yeah,
that'll be interesting. How as a parent we deal with those things. So that was kindergarten, and interesting. The stations, the Hammer. Any other stations you remember?
Well, there's a coloring station. There's a block station. There's a kitchen station. That's about all I remember.
Okay. Yeah, just very different than things I've seen more currently in kindergarten classrooms. And anything about those early years or?
No, I remember them being nice. I remember walking home from school with my sister. That was interesting. I remember my mother, for whatever reason, I think as, hindsight as a parent, I thought she was crazy, but she never walked us to school or back. Yet she was a stay-at-home mom. And even in kindergarten, I walked by myself, and or with my sister.
Yeah, we did too.
Yeah.
That brings up another thought. One of the things I'm interested in is the connection between home and school. So your mom was a stay-at-home mom, and you did live close. Was there any other kind of connections, or how did you see your school world, your home world? Did they connect in any way?
No. I think even when I went to the other school, if we had a field trip, maybe one parent would come. If we had a party, maybe one mom would show up. And I always laugh when people say, oh, we need more parent involvement. Parents now, in my opinion, are more involved in the classroom than they were when I was growing up. Yeah. My parents met my teachers at PTA, Parents in Touch days.
Right.
They didn't know them ahead of time. So.
Right. Yeah. I think that there are different experiences out there, and that is one that I've heard too. Nope.
No, it was very separate. Yep. It was very separate.
And then how did you experience the going to School 99?
I loved it, but I was very lucky that several of my best friends from church also were going there. So I knew they were already there. They had gone 3rd grade, and I just joined them in the 4th grade. But to me, it was a whole different experience. Instead of a classroom with rows of desks facing a blackboard, we had clusters of Indian tribes, or we're all facing the center, and we grew plants in the middle. It was just a very different experience. But
yeah, that's a really good visual image. I mean, for how different we look at education when we say you're gifted.
Right.
And do you have any reflections on why that is?
I don't know why that is. I've never understood why suddenly you walk into a gifted school like at 99 and it was completely different and acceptable. I don't know if it's just not accepted in a traditional, or I don't know.
Yeah. And then when you got there, so the way they did things was differently, and you were lucky enough to have friends there. I'm sorry.
No,
my dog in, so he doesn't make noise.
I'll take a bite of gingerbread.
Good. And I'll edit this out. Oh, crazy dog. I should have made him stay in. What I was thinking about was, you were lucky enough to have kid friends, so that was. What, anything else about that school building, or the teachers' methods, or just feelings? Or
those friends that I made those 3 years, 90% of them I keep in touch with today.
Yeah, very close.
We were very close. It's bizarre how close we all were and still are. So even our teachers. Our 4th grade teacher just died about a month ago. Our 5th grade teacher very oddly died while we were in her class. Not in class, but she became ill. And so we had a string of subs and then a new teacher. So I don't know if that experience bonded us in a weird way. And then to this day, I still keep in touch with my 6th grade teacher.
That's neat. I don't do that. I feel so bad now. I often think of teachers, but wow.
Yeah, it's very neat. Yeah.
And then when you were in school, did you have any, now this is a kind of a weird question, but thinking about you as a kindergartner, you did have some thoughts, so this is a fair question. Did you have any idea about what school was for or how it fit into your life? As a kid. That's a kid question.
I honestly, my parents did not put a huge emphasis on education.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was important that we went to school and got good grades. We knew that.
Yeah, and can I ask how you, I wonder how people know that. Like, how...
Gosh, how do you... I guess because if you do anything, especially as a kid, you're always expected to do your best at it.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
That was a message that you took in from your parents?
Yeah.
Or was that a message inside of you?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. But, if you color, you stay in the lines. If you, everything you do, you try to do it the right way. So I guess that just mentality went to school of you go to school, you try to get the best grades.
And at home, would somebody not get the best grades and then would you know that you were supposed to? Or was it sounds almost like it was an understood thing, but I'm just wondering if it was the way you did your homework or the way you looked over report cards.
It was understood, but it wasn't always enforced.
Oh, that's interesting.
Is that, yeah. In fact, my brother and I weren't the best students. My sister got better grades than we did. However, she's the only one who graduated college. Is my sister who stayed in traditional school, where my brother and I didn't. But yet I think my brother and I are extremely more intelligent than my sister.
Okay, I'm telling her.
Bless her heart, she's very book smart, but, that's...
How did you get into the pick to the program? Did they, because you just said I wasn't the best at grades. Was it a test or maybe a combination?
I think then it was boredom that that teachers kind of tried to recognize.
Wow. So maybe a more personal observation.
Yeah, I don't remember test. I think that I remember getting a letter. My brother and I each got a letter that they invited us to attend the school.
And then was your mom and dad's choice
Yep.
to go?
Yeah.
And they talked with you about it?
Yeah. Yeah. I was excited to go. I was lucky to have friends there, so it was easy.
It sounds like a nice experience. Just a really, really nice experience.
It was a wonderful experience.
With the teachers and the closeness.
Yeah, they were fantastic.
How did you do with? Oh, but then it ended at 7th grade. I'm hanging on to that because I've talked to a few people. I think they were in GT or AT programs, and they might have actually gone up to 8th, but yours did not. So that was another transition. How did that transition go?
It was miserable. Most of my friends went to Shortridge, where they applied into magnet schools.
So by that time, Shortridge was a middle school, and it was a magnet middle school.
Yep. Like you could
and
go
I'm trying to let me follow the year. Maybe you remember when you graduated from middle school.
It was 1989 when I started middle school.
Okay, so that would made it hard for you because you didn't get the magnet option. Did it cross your mind, or did you cross your
I begged my parents to let me do it.
Okay.
But for whatever reason, both my siblings had gone to Forest Manor. My sister was already there.
Okay.
Because she was only 1 year ahead of me, and they refused to let me go to Shortridge. And when I walked into Forest Manor, it was a different world.
Yeah. How was it different?
Well, within a couple months of starting, one of the kids who went there was murdered. So it was a very rough crowd. There were lots of fights, which to me, I couldn't believe they had security guards. That was shocking to me that I was going to a school that had security officers.
And I just wanted to check in, when you went to 99, I know you were kind of drawn there in a way for a special program. Mm-hmm. Was it a bus, by the way?
Yeah, I bused.
So you did have to take a bus. Was it long, or was it somewhere on the east side?
It's 99 is still there. It's still the Arlington Woods 99 program.
Oh.
They just pulled...
Okay.
Yeah, but they just dropped the AT program for several years, and then they started Seidner and acted like it was this new idea.
Okay, so I apologize for interrupting. because you were talking about going to this new middle school and security guards.
Yeah.
You're taking a bus too?
I took a bus.
And I know Forest Manor is it off 38th or a little south of 38th?
I can't even remember.
Okay.
I mean, it's now our education building, and yeah, I don't even remember where it is. I think
Okay.
you're right, though.
So, but the experience, can I ask you about busing? Because I know 72, 73, I think the court order was like enforced. And my research is like one-way busing. But then again, I will sometimes hear about families who were white who were bused or didn't want to be bused. And did that enter into your world at all?
No.
So you never heard about it, or it was never out, oh, I don't want to do that? Or,
No.
okay. So when you were at your homeschool, was it integrated or was it neighborhood kids?
It was mostly neighborhood kids.
Or maybe both.
Yeah, it was. I do remember a handful of buses
Oh, okay.
at 85, maybe 3 or 4 buses that came.
Okay.
But I remember most of the kids being Caucasian. We also had the Guardians home down the street from us.
Okay. That's a home for kids without families?
Yep. And so I remember we'd get 85 would get those kids, and it was very transitional. So
You mean because they didn't always stay?
they didn't always stay. Someone once told me that they had like a 3-day rule there, that because it was kids who were brought from a home, put into the Guardian's home until they could find a foster home. But I knew several kids who stayed longer than that, so I don't know. I don't remember as a kid. I just remember,
Sure. It's hard to.
if
A lot
they're
of these things aren't on our radar when we're
Yeah.
kids, but I wondered.
yeah.
And so then when you went to your Gifted Talented, it was still felt like an East Side kind of community school, or was it a little more mixed up?
Well,
Maybe the community was more mixed up. Than I
the
know.
community was very mixed, and
Okay.
we only had one. It was a regular school that had an AT program in it.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, and it was right across the street from the projects. It was in a rougher area, and so the school was pretty integrated, and even the AT program was pretty integrated as
Okay.
well.
That gives me a good a picture
Yeah.
of what it looked like.
So I guess I had more
What a fun-
diversity at 99 than I did at 85.
Okay. And then when you went to Forest Manor, and it's so interesting because I know neighborhoods don't look the same. I can picture them today, but that doesn't mean that's what it looked like at all.
Right.
Even 20 years ago. So then when you went there, you're taking a longer bus ride, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it was long, maybe 40 minutes.
And your friends are somewhere else.
My friends are somewhere
And
else.
it's a security guard. And did you say, like within a few months of going to school, a kid had been murdered?
Yeah, yeah.
And what did you know about that? I mean, did you read about it in the news, or did they talk to you about
They
it?
just no, they didn't talk to us about it. You knew. I remember the kid's name was Peanut, that he was shot and killed. Yeah, and that's all we knew.
And did your family talk about it at all?
No,
But you didn't.
they did. Now, in my family's defense, I have to say, during my junior high years, my mom was dying. So my mom died when I was in the 7th grade. So those 2 years, aside from being at a school I didn't want to be in, I also didn't really have parents at home because my dad was always at the hospital. So that's also an interesting twist of education. Not having
something
parents. Yeah.
very, very big going on at home.
So
And to you personally.
yeah, sure.
Did you feel like it was personally? I know a little bit what it's like to be a teenager or a preteen, and sometimes things are different than we think.
Yeah, I guess I didn't think about it much as a kid.
Yeah.
I just dealt with it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can imagine. And so the school experience, anything about the teachers, the learning?
I had a couple really great teachers. Of course, just because I didn't like the school, but I remembered not feeling challenged at all because I had just come from, this great school where I was reading Beowulf when I was 12, and then I get into 7th grade and I read Rikki Tikki Tavi, and it was just like, are you serious? And I just remember teachers giving me books on the side and other things to do because they knew I was bored and had nothing else to
And
do.
interesting, there was no program or system in your world at that time in 7th and 8th grade that said, well, this young lady just came out of a program where she experienced
Right.
this, and this. How are we going to continue this?
Right. No, there was nothing. In fact, I had had Spanish for several years, And so when I came into the 7th grade, I was in the 8th grade Spanish. But then when I was in 8th grade, they had nothing for me. So I had a private, I was still stuck in a 7th grade class with private instruction on the side. They couldn't offer any. But then I was the only one. So how do you just pick up this one kid? And again, I think it's issues that still happen today. We start these programs and we don't continue them.
Right.
We don't foster when they're older of what to do.
It takes a lot of thought and planning and I will say that something I've experienced myself at the school. And you know what's interesting, Annie?
What's that?
And just from talking to you and other people, is sometimes when I think something is all, and I'm just sharing this on the side, sometimes when I think, oh, it's this day, it's this system, and then I meet somebody and they say, oh, something exactly the same that happened to them.
It's the same thing.
So that's really, really helpful to hear that.
I want to eat my bread.
Oh, I am so sorry, Nick. Okay.
What is the dog's name?
Nick.
Nick.
Okay.
Nick's fine.
Okay.
I can handle dogs.
Sorry, I'll edit this out too. And there was no GT or AT program.
Nope.
But what was the middle school at Shortridge that your friends went to? Because I've talked to people who went to it as a high school.
Oh yeah.
But
it was
time.
it was just the magnet middle school. They had the humanities, the music, the math, science magnet.
Okay.
So they didn't call it gifted, but it was definitely more challenging than what I had at Shortridge.
Okay.
I mean at Forest Manor.
Forest Manor. Okay. I'm just going to double check on some things that I tend to ask everybody, so I want to be, even and ask everybody. Yeah, we did. High school. Is there anything else you wanted to say about your earlier years?
No.
Okay, really, really interesting. So then high school, how's that choice done, or was it a choice?
It was just kind of a given that I would go to Howe. My brother went to Howe, my sister and my parents just go to Howe.
And and your parents too, that's right. And do you think that was like a family given? Were there also starting to be options out there for magnet high schools yet?
Broad Ripple was a magnet high school, but I wasn't interested in going. And then 2 years into high school is when they did the select schools. So that's
select schools. I haven't heard that yet.
Select schools started. The fall of '93 or '94? Anyway, it became where you could choose any high school you wanted to go to.
Okay.
And IPS would bus you.
Okay.
And so you could select any.
Oh, I'd heard of a choice system from talking with Kelly once, and I got the impression it was almost every high school, every school, but maybe it was just high school.
I was in high school, so it may have been. I just don't remember.
It sounds more sensible. You couldn't possibly bus those people.
Yeah.
So when you went to Howe, did you get bused on an IPS bus, or was it a different system?
No, I got bused. I lived close, and I hated riding the bus. I hated it.
What did you hate about it?
Because I lived 3 minutes away, yet I took a 35-minute bus ride.
Oh, yeah.
So I would ride the bus in the morning for the first 2 years, and then I'd just walk home.
Yeah.
And then by my junior year, my sister was driving, and then I was driving. So.
And you had access to a car, which
we did.
Also nice.
Yeah.
I have that same experience with the bus too. It's long.
It's long.
So what was high school? What are your most strong memories about high school?
I loved high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got that impression.
Yeah, we had a very close group of friends. I married Josh, who was my high school boyfriend. Now, I didn't marry him first, but we ended up getting married. That's another long story.
But that's where your strong long-term relationship began.
Right. Yeah.
So that is a very
Yeah, Josh and I dated all through high school and then broke up after. But we loved our high school years. We loved our teachers.
What were your teachers like? I mean, what did you like about it?
I liked the freedom of high school when you started to be treated more like an adult, to where you could make your own decisions. Suddenly, it didn't matter if you used a pen or a pencil on your homework, as long, those little things that were so controlled for so many. Like you could chew gum. I mean, teachers didn't care if you chewed gum in high school, or just those little rules that suddenly Our teachers, one thing that I've noticed that we don't have anymore in IPS that used to be is my brother was 7 years older than me.
Mm-hmm.
When he went to Howe, Frank Tout was the principal. When I went to Howe, Frank Tout was the principal.
Mm-hmm.
When he went to Howe, he could tell me, watch out for this teacher, or this teacher expects this, or you're going to need this on this class.
Yes.
We don't have that anymore. We don't have the stability of a school being the same year after year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really helped when I could go into a teacher's room and they'd say, Dirth, I know your dad, or you know what I mean? And then you knew, okay, these people have a connection to me and my family already. So I miss that IPS used to have. My uncle, who was older than my father, had the same art teacher that Josh had. You know, that's how long teachers stayed at Howe. They stayed for decades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something I also experienced, and very interesting. And the interesting about the rules, because I hadn't thought about that, but kids, when they get older, they want to be treated differently.
Yeah.
And that's what you experienced as being meaningful, like being
Right.
recognized, I am not a kid anymore.
Right.
And you're also going to this, was the school environment different than Forest? I mean, not that scary, you said security, murder.
Yeah, we still had security guards there, and we still had issues. But I think that it was really a well-oiled machine of a school.
Interesting.
The teachers, the staff is what made it, because the staff had worked together for decades. They all knew each other. You know, it's like working with people so many years, you don't even have to talk anymore. It just works.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened at Howe. I mean, several of our teachers were students at Howe, who then came back to teach at Howe.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, that's a really, it's its own community then.
Yeah, the Howe teachers still get together like once a month, and I mean to this day, and see each other, because it was a strong community.
That's such a contrast to some of the things we're experiencing today.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I think that's letting people get to know each other. I can't count the number of people in my life that I've met, and I didn't like them for the first year. Mm-hmm. But after a couple years, you may not like them, but you learn to respect them for what they do and who they are and how different they reach a kid than you can. But staff, they don't have that time to connect like that.
Yeah, that's a pretty strong wisdom about life. You know, the people that you don't get at first, but then you can get them in a different way if you take your time.
Yeah, and I mean, you could have the junior English teacher know, well, I know what the sophomore English teacher teaches, so I'm going to pick up where they left off, or you know what I mean? It just worked.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember anything about sophomore English or classes or favorites or?
I had an issue. I had an issue with English in that I took orchestra at the exact same time as the AP English.
Okay.
So I was chronically miserable in English because I could never take the AP English. And like I said, I was reading excerpts from Romeo and Juliet where I had read full Shakespearean plays. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So excerpts instead of the real play.
Yeah.
The full play. And you were reading Beowulf in 6th grade.
6th grade. Yeah. So a lot of my English teachers would use me to help them grade papers or to do other things because I literally was never interested and I never needed to be there. In fact, I remember at one time, true story, Josh came into my English class. My teacher was Mr. Witz, and he says, "Can I take Annie out to lunch?" And she says, "Where are you going?" He said, "Probably McDonald's." She said, "Will you bring me some fries?" He said, "Sure." She said, "Okay," and I left because I didn't need to be there, and they knew it, and I think they felt horrid for it.
That's a tough situation.
Yeah, but I love my orchestra, so.
Yeah, that is interesting, too. I was wondering, what did you play?
I played the violin.
And did that go on in your life? Did you carry on violin?
No.
I know that's not always the important part.
Right. Yeah, no. I didn't. I can still pick it up. I can still play it. Both Wyatt and Morgan have now started to play in school, so I can help them, which I like. I was very good in high school. I was first chair. I mean, I really was good. And then my orchestra teacher, Miss B, is the orchestra director at Broderpool right now.
Wow.
So it's fun to see her events. And
yeah, that's just really, really interesting. I mean, I didn't have younger siblings much come up through school, and I moved away, so I'm not getting any of these connections that you still have. That can be very meaningful.
Yeah, it's nice.
And a while back you said, "Oh, we had our issues," and I don't know what your issues might have been at school. Can you help me understand what issues look like back in the day? Let's see, we're talking 94 is when you went to high school.
Yeah, there were some, just stupid things. I remember kids standing on the third floor of the staircase after lunch and pouring chocolate milk down on the people coming up. Those kind of things. And there were some fights and,
yeah, it was. What happened when there were fights? Did you ever have to, witness one or know what it was about?
But in high school, by that time, I was just so irritated by it all that I walked away. I mean, in junior high, I may have wanted to watch.
Oh, yeah.
But in high school, we just didn't want to. We were really just there we enjoyed our classes. We enjoyed our teachers.
You mentioned AP, and I was wondering, did high school pick up a little bit on if they had advanced placement, did they have honors? Or that's how they did it in my day, honors and advanced placement.
I don't remember honors. They had lots of AP. They had, Hal did a really great job. They always had like advanced chemistry. I guess I had advanced chemistry, calculus, trigonometry. You definitely could get where you needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
One story is, one thing I did not like is the smoking in the bathrooms.
Oh my gosh.
Because I didn't smoke, and I didn't want to smell like smoke. So my girlfriend and I would sneak into the handicap bathroom. The kids who had to use that had a key. But if you put your hand under the exit door and, pulled it out, you could get into the bathroom. So we used that bathroom for years. Well, when we were seniors and we thought we were really important. She was a valedictorian. I mean, we were good kids, so we got away with a lot. But we decided one day that we'd had enough, that the school should be able to provide us bathrooms to go in and pee in without smelling like smoke. Mm-hmm. So to make this stand, we decided that we were going to march into the teacher's lounge where they had the bathroom, and we were going to pee in their bathroom, and they were going to kick us out for doing it, and then we were going to fight it tooth and nail. And so we did. We marched into that teacher lounge. Sure enough, they were in there smoking. So
that's what teachers' lounge is.
Yeah, so we didn't get anywhere.
Not really the power play you were going to go for.
No.
That's funny about the smoking. I forgot. There actually was a song in the 70s, I think, called "Smoking in the Bathroom" or
Boys Room.
Do you know, was it allowed or was it just snuck? The smoking.
It was snuck.
Yeah. I think that was my experience in high school.
I think they started to ignore it after, and every now and again you'd smell pot too. So.
Oh God. Excuse me.
That's all right.
I'm gonna just double check on. I think I asked everything on the high school. Just really interesting. High school then is a time when I wonder if you were thinking anymore about your education or about the education world at all. So I guess that's only two questions. Was there anything going on in your school or your school system that was like the issue of the day?
Well,
that you were aware of?
Mailman. Wait.
I'm sorry, we gotta.
He's all right.
It's only the mailman. He comes every day. Nick, it's the mailman. Okay. I'm so sorry about my phlegmy throat. So the thing I wanted to know about was issues of the day that had to do with education. It could have been about your school or something about.
No. They were closing high schools.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
So that took up. It started my sophomore year. At the end of my sophomore year, talking about closing Howe in Washington, or Arlington. There's a couple of them on the list. I think there was 4 of them they were choosing from.
And did you find out from the paper or the radio?
The paper. Yeah.
Okay. And what was the reasoning for one?
Budgets.
Okay.
Yeah, to save money.
Where would Howe kids go? Did they say?
Howe kids, because of select schools, you could choose anywhere to go. So you didn't have.
You might choose to go to the one that was closest to you.
Yeah, you could choose anywhere. You could choose Tech or Broader Bowl or.
Interesting. The thing about Select that I didn't ask you is they weren't magnets necessarily, but did they have strengths? Did everybody know, well, the great football team's at so and so, or Tech being tech.
I think some of them had strengths. I think Broderpool, had the music magnet.
So it wasn't a whole magnet, but it had a magnet program within the building.
Yeah.
I understand. That's how it was when I moved here.
I want to say Broderpool was all magnet, and you had to test into one of the magnets.
One of the ones at Broad Ripple.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to say that's how it was.
Okay.
Like Kelly would know better than that, but I think that's how it was in the 90s.
Okay.
It wasn't, you had to get into something to go there.
So, of course, going back to the issue of the idea of your own school being one of the ones that are closed, they're propositioning, you can go to one of these other ones, and Broad Ripple jumps up as well. Okay, that's the arts magnet. Did you know anything about any of the other schools?
Tech.
And what's the reputation around Tech at that time?
Tech was very similar to Howe, but just bigger.
And similar,
that it was in a neighborhood close to yours. We knew a lot of the kids who went to Tech. A lot of the same kind of programs and
like what kind of programs? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
like the music department. I was very involved in the music department at Howe, and we knew that Tech did musicals, which not all high schools did musicals. We knew that Tech had an orchestra. Certain things that you were interested in, you knew.
Yeah.
For me, I knew if I had to choose another school, it would have been Tech, and that's where a lot of my friends went.
Okay, that's really helpful because it wasn't this magnet specialty, but not every school had the best band or the best orchestra or did musicals.
Right.
So that would be important. So you said that you first heard about it when you were a sophomore?
It was the end of my sophomore year, yeah.
And then they were proposing to do it. Were they proposing to do it by your senior year? Or
we didn't know. I remember my dad, during my junior year is when the talk really started. And there was talk about it being closed the next year. My dad was dating a woman in Carmel who he eventually married, and he's like, "This is great. You can go to Carmel." I'm like, "I'm not going to Carmel. I'll live with so-and-so and go to Tech. I'm not moving." But so I remember it was a possibility that it could have been closed by our senior year.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah. So we started going to, school board meetings
and
our junior year.
You and your junior classmates?
Yeah.
Okay.
Junior and senior, sophomore, anybody, parents, staff.
Very activist oriented. Do that.
My best friend spoke. I didn't speak, but she signed up.
And I'm getting that it's coming from you as classmates. Was there a teacher or a parent that either supported you or organized you?
No, the students organized themselves.
How did you do that?
I don't remember. The Howe Alumni Association helped do things like they had a candle vigil. But the students organized a walkout one day, and Josh and I drove because we had cars and we were lazy. But they, hundreds of students marched down to the Ed Center in protest of closing Howe. There's a picture of it in the newspaper. Yeah, of them marching.
So that was a school day.
Yep. Yeah, and it is no easy walk to go from like where I live.
Yeah, it is.
To downtown at the Ed Center.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out. That's several miles, isn't it?
Yeah, probably about 4 or 5.
So, and you drove.
We drove.
But there must have been a stream of kids going down
there
Washington.
Was, yeah.
And you were in the paper.
They were in the paper, yeah.
And then when you got there, did you picket or something? Or was there a meeting going
I think it was just to stand outside and be visible.
What'd that do?
Nothing.
Did you get any... You got in the paper.
Yeah, there were dozens of articles about saving Howe, and there was some story about when Irvington was founded that the rule of Irvington is that they always had to have a public high school available for people, and people were like, if we find this slip of paper, we can save Howe, but nobody knew where this paper, so...
Oh, that your community had to have a public high school. Oh, how interesting.
So the entire community really, they came out in droves. Every school board meeting was packed. People from the neighborhood, from the community were fighting to keep Howe.
And then what? So that was junior year.
Yeah.
And
then
how did it progress from there? And senior year it was open?
Senior year, we got to go back.
Okay.
And it was after Christmas break our senior year. We found out over Christmas break that they were closing Howe.
At the end of your senior
Yeah.
year. Would they
So
come
Howe
to
and
you?
Washington.
That's just a really powerful image of all
Yeah.
those people, the community, the kids, and then
It's really weird.
yeah.
Is that some of these same board members who voted to close Howe
Ooh.
then voted to reopen Howe
Oh.
a few years later. Well, I don't understand. I don't understand that, But
Are any of those board members still serving today?
what's weird is some of those board members are still serving today.
I'm guessing Mrs. Bush, because she or is it is, I don't know.
Yeah.
After, she's been on one.
Yeah, Bush and Safaru, which is very strange to me because all these programs, like the AT program that was shut down, then years later gets reopened as Seidner, like it was this brand new idea that Dr. White brought to IPS. But I want to say no, because I was in that program
And I must say that
in the 80s.
the old program that I'm hearing from you and other people I've interviewed that have been in it in their neighborhoods, it sounded like satellites around the city. Like if I live over here, I go to this one. You were on the east side, so you went to that
yeah.
one. I don't know. I'm trying to think if I've heard of 2 or 3 of them counting you of that. But so it gave me that impression.
Yeah.
But I'll learn as I go around the city west
Yeah.
to see if they have their own satellite.
That's interesting.
But Seidner today is drawing from all over.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And it's an entire school, not just a program within a school,
Right.
which is different. But
Right. But I don't want to overlook your very interesting point. You can vote to close the school, and that's the way it's got to be.
I think it's the
and
best
then a couple of
decision.
years later, do you know how many years later it was that it reopened?
I want to say 5.
And then did it reopen as a regular old high school?
No. How did it reopen? It opened up as like a middle school called the Howe Academy,
Okay.
and then it was Howe Middle School. Then it was Howe. It has changed names 4 times since it's reopened.
Yeah.
Which for 90 years it was fine as Howe High School.
And I'm going to look at so 98 was when you graduated.
95.
90. Sorry.
That's okay. I could be younger.
Grad 95. Okay, so that means by 2000 it was probably open again.
I think so.
And then it went through a couple of in middle school academy that was a middle school.
Yeah. Yeah, went through a
And-
couple things, and now
and-
it's 7th through 12th, and it's Howe Community School.
And there's a whole other thing going on with How today.
Yeah, now it's not even going to belong to IPS anymore.
Okay. Is that anything that you're involved with as a community member? I know you're a board member, and
Oh, yeah.
I understand it's a state thing. That is, the state says you've had these academic
Yeah.
scores for so many years. We now have the power to do this. And they had the public hearings,
Yeah.
and they said we are going to do it.
Yes.
Who are they bringing in?
Uh,
Is it some charter school?
Charter USA is taken with Howe. Yeah, Charter USA is Howe, Manual, and Imadonnen.
Okay.
And then the, I always forget his name, Tinsley is Arlington.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I started out by asking you, are you involved in any way? I know you're a board member, so
I'm not actively involved. I have been talking with the Howe Alumni Association because they're very active.
okay.
I was on the Alumni Association years ago before I ran for school board, so they trust me, they like me, and I'm happy that the Alumni Associations are staying with their schools. Like Manual's very active, they're staying with Manual, Howe's staying with Howe, and regardless of saying, well, if it's not IPS, we're leaving Howe, they're staying, and they're saying, we're supporting this school no matter what, we want it to succeed.
It's still our community.
Yeah, as a community member, as an alumni, as a second generation student, I'm highly disappointed and saddened that IPS doesn't have ownership of Howe anymore.
Mm-hmm.
However, as a board member, I question that IPS keeping Howe is in the best interest of students.
Mm-hmm.
And I get a lot of flack for saying that, but being on the inside, I can see the mistakes made. I mean, since Howe opened, it had, I think, 7 principals back in 2007. So I just don't think the decisions that have been made since Howe reopened have been in the best interest.
Mm-hmm.
And if the school's going to succeed, I don't think it's going to be with IPS.
That's a pretty hard statement as
It really is.
as a Howe grad and
It
as
is.
somebody working on the board, you
Yeah.
know, trying to govern the school as well. I'm going to go back to your own experience because it's important. So that was I know from talking to you in the past, that was a very strong impression made upon you. That activism, that
Yeah.
almost losing your school and actually losing
Yeah.
your school. How would you say that the high school experience, that included, but other things too, impacted your young life, your wonderful young life?
It very much so. I did not have a home life at the time. So how was my life? And
Yeah, that's great.
yeah, I would not have succeeded without my friends that I had, the teachers that I had. I had a father who was gone for weeks on end without even telling us he was leaving, who never asked to see a report card, who just kind of had a rough life and checked out and started living a different happy life and trying to forget about the old. Unfortunately, there were 2 girls left at home still in that old life. However, we both succeeded and we're okay, but I give thanks to Hal for that. My sister and I had teachers that gave us jobs in like cleaning math offices, knowing it was a completely bullshit made up job that they did for us because they knew my dad was at home and he left for Cancun for 2 weeks and left us $20. So they gave us these jobs to do this. Yeah. So yeah, our math teacher, Roxy Watson is her name. Now, we were lucky because of Hal and the community, a lot of our teachers also went to our church.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. So we grew up, Roxy was Roxy, and then she became Miss Watson when she was our math teacher. But she was the one who would take us out a couple times a month to buy tampons and maxi pads.
Boy.
Because she knew my dad wasn't. But it took her to, to pick up on that and to do it. So we were very lucky.
Yeah. I have heard some other stories too about the importance of the high school, the kinds of things you're describing.
Yeah.
And you know what? I bet I'm going to hear a lot more.
And
It's a turbulent time for a lot of
it
people.
was. And to this day, and I'm not making it up, many of my teachers are still my friends. In fact, one teacher, I'll have to point out Mr. Spears, who just retired from IPS, taught at Howe for many years, and he's still involved with, he does tennis. I think he does it over at Tech. But
Nice.
he did a Super Bowl, academic Super Bowl team with us in high school.
Okay.
It's like
And
kind of
what-
like a brain game, but different. And Josh and I were on the same team, and we were on for 3 years on the social studies team. And after we graduated, to thank all the Super Bowl kids for, their years of dedication, he had a cookout at his house. So we all went. So that was the summer of 95. And we all went to this cookout at his house. And we have gone to a cookout at his house every summer since. The same group of kids. And we would laugh the first couple years of how, one day we'll be bringing our kids. And we are. And so, I don't know how many years that is. 15, 16 years of cookouts at this teacher's house. So we always stay connected, to him.
And is it the academic Super Bowl kids across years? Or is it like that one special year?
It was that one special year.
Neat.
Yeah. So I think it was when Hal was closing. It became, a group. We had a couple teachers that we just really liked, and our choir teacher was one, but Mr. Spears was another.
I've sometimes asked people, and I think I did you earlier in your earlier years, about the homeschool connection. You're telling me school was your home, I think, this time. And there are overlays. I'm hearing about the teacher who also went to your church.
Right.
And do teachers live in the neighborhood?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Josh's mom, who is in Irvington, still to this day lives right next door to her science teacher. So, yeah.
Some teachers you might not want to live next door to.
Many teachers lived in the neighborhood and still do.
That's good. I'll be really interested to hear if that's replicated in other neighborhoods. Irvington has a really strong reputation as a neighborhood.
The art teacher that my husband had,
Yeah.
his grandkids go to preschool with my kids. So it's a very connected.
Wow. And again, so different from my own experience being away,
Yeah,
but it sounds really warm.
it is. Yeah.
And you kind of know what to expect because you know these people so well on different
Yeah.
levels. And then the education itself, I think you've said so many things about how powerful it was. Is there anything else about school in general or education in general? What it is for? What there you are sitting on the board. What's it all for?
A lot of people say it's just to make it through college, and
Okay.
I don't agree with that.
Okay.
Um,
To make it to college.
Yeah,
That's
that's the
Tunnel.
goal, to get them to college.
That's
But
what we're all working for,
yeah,
but not you.
I don't think so.
Mhm.
I think that if we can teach our students and our children to succeed just in life in general, and that means getting a job to pay your bills, to keep you fed, and to learn how to be happy in that life, and to be brave enough to make changes if you aren't. I think that's kind of what needs to be taught as well. And it's not just college, because I think if we put college on our kids' shoulders as the only success, then if they don't, they feel like they failed, which I don't think you failed if you don't go to college.
Yeah.
Or if you drop out of college.
I don't know how you feel. I don't have a watch, and I haven't offered you
I don't
one because I know you have a son to meet for lunch. But I just wanted to.
I canceled on Wyatt.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Well, because Sage is sick, and so I don't.
Oh, you need to. Okay.
No,
Well, here's my wish, and you tell me how it will work for you. If I could switch gears on you, and if you
Yep.
have the energy, or if you need something else to drink, or
I'm fine.
to talk about being a parent
Okay.
and your vivid experiences of bringing children to the same school system that you grew up in. Similarities, differences are very welcome, but what's it like being a mom, taking your kids to school?
Well, for us, it was no discussion about IPS. We knew we would be in IPS.
Okay.
We just didn't know where.
Okay.
But we knew it would not be a traditional school. Josh grew up going to Key and Montessori, and I thrived in the AT program.
Uh-huh.
So we knew we wanted something different. So we applied, with the Key, the Montessori, and CFI.
Oh,
Got
okay.
into CFI. Luckily, right away, so we didn't have
That's
to start
great.
someplace else.
And I should say that at this time, I wanted to kind of reference, you said it was a given, we're going to go to IPS. Well, back in your day, was it a given kind of, or was there a choice?
It was either IPS or you paid for Catholic school.
And today, what would you say, like your peers, at the same juncture you're at, are they going, oh, it's either my neighborhood school, a magnet, or what?
No, I think there are so many options.
Okay.
I laugh when people say we need choice.
So what were the options that peers were?
I have friends now who are looking at, now you can go to surrounding districts. So I have one set of friends who are saying we're going to go to Beech Grove Public Schools.
Okay.
Another set is saying we're going to the Beech Grove Montessori, which is now a Beech Grove magnet. Paramount. I have friends who go to Paramount,
Which is a charter school,
which is a
right?
charter school.
Is that downtownish?
No, that's Beech Grove-ish.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Then you have the Project School, which is I think downtownish.
Okay. Martindale.
Yeah. So you have, and then you have IPS, and there's 6 magnets that they have for elementary ages. You have more choice now than I think you've ever had.
And interesting, the people that you said were choosing Beech Grove, because that's now an option with the change in
Right.
funding and all, to go to a different school district. I guess I'm wondering, was IPS ever on the radar, or was that
I think IPS, I think it's safe to say IPS was on the radar, but mostly CFI.
Okay,
And
that helps.
sometimes I just want to shake people and say there's more than CFI, and I wish that I had looked at, more.
Mm-hmm.
But, charter schools were Morgan is 12 now. So 7 years ago, charter schools were not so prominent. There was the Irvington Charter School, and then there was the Lighthouse Charter School that had just started, and those two were the only charter
Okay.
school options.
Uh-huh.
And now there's just
There are a lot.
There's so many.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So I asked about your peers because it's tells us about a trend
Yeah.
that's going on that you're experiencing and your friends are experiencing. But your choice, you and Josh knew it would be IPS.
Yes.
He had good experiences at his options, and you had a good experience. And then you got into CFI.
Yeah.
So how is that the same, different, interesting?
It's. I think it's very different. Like I said before, there's so much expected out of parents at the school level.
Oh.
I think.
Okay. Like expected.
Like volunteering, like
Okay.
My kids will be like, "Are you gonna have lunch with me this week?" Which is great, but I don't remember my parents having lunch with me. So it's just I have to evolve with them on what they want, how they want me involved. And I like going, and I like meeting their friends, and I like seeing what they're doing. But part of me also wants them to have their own life. Like, had my dad been at Howe, I would not have been Annie. I would have been very different, much more.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
how you act in front of your parents,
Right.
or because they're around.
right. But my kids want me there, so I guess as long as they still want me, I should show up.
The time may come
Yeah.
when they don't.
But, yeah, Josh and I now struggle. The things that we struggle with now are when schools expect parents to give their rights up at the door. Like, little things. Like when I tell Morgan, if you don't eat all your lunch, I don't really care, but throw it away because I don't like dealing with food that comes home. I have weird issues if yogurt sits in a lunchbox all day. I'm not going to put it back in the fridge. It freaks me out, so just throw it away.
Yeah.
Morgan comes home with a full thing of lunch. I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "They won't let us throw it away. They want us to come home and show you what we did and didn't eat."
Sorry.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't care what they say. I'm your boss. Throw it away. I said, "Morgan, you need," and she's like, "But I can't. I said, "Well, maybe respectfully you should turn to that person and say, 'I'm sorry, I don't understand the rules. Do the hot lunch people need to take home their leftovers as well and show their parents what they did and didn't eat? Because why should you be punished for bringing your lunch that they suddenly control when I bought it?'" So I get angry at thinking that I lose my rights, and though I don't want my child to be my pawn, I want her to say, no, go call my mom, because that is ridiculous.
That's funny. I wonder, it must have been different when you were in school. Did you bring lunch? Or
I did not.
Did you? Was it a cafeteria?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, and I
'cause
ate the school
I've talked
lunch.
to people who used to go home for school, and I used to
Yeah,
home for lunch. I used to go home for lunch. So yeah, that's interesting, and I'm sure that's just an example.
that's just an example.
Anything
of,
else that's feels a little? It sounds a little invasive or a little.
Yeah.
Like they're telling you this is the way we do it, and you've got to. It sounds like you got to why.
Right, right. Yeah, Morgan has told me, and I understand this, of they don't allow soda for kids to bring soda in their lunches. And so instead of telling a student, a teacher walked by, grabbed it, and threw it away. And then that student had no option for anything to drink for lunch. And that angered me because, number one, if a parent packs it, why do you override the parent? I understand you may not want that kid to have that Sprite, but really, is the strawberry milk with red dye 40 any worse than that Sprite? I don't understand. So, yeah, when we walk in the door and we feel like we're losing...
There's a whole world out there I do not know, Annie. You have introduced me to it.
Yeah.
The lunch... I know, this isn't going on. The lunch Nazi.
Oh,
just
it's
a little-
awful. I'm fighting that right now is the lunch. And Josh is going to pull Morgan today because as a group punishment, they have lost their recess.
Ooh.
Well, what does a student who does what they're supposed to do and still loses recess every day, what are they striving for now? Because if they're still being punished and not being able to that 20 minutes of much needed mental free time, what's their incentive to continue to behave? So not only did we find out, and I don't care if this goes in, Morgan not has her recess, but she has to march on the edge of the playground for the entire 20 minutes.
I gotta wonder what they were doing. Sounds like they must have been doing something really awful.
But not
terrible.
all of them were. So
But-
you may have
but
8
I
kids.
You know I'm joking.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
but
joking.
you may have 8 kids who were doing nothing wrong, who are now marching on the edge of a playground for 20 minutes. So what incentive do they have to keep doing right? Hell, I'd enjoy my day and be reckless if I'm going to end up right back here. So that angers me that they can take away her freedom for that
Yeah.
20 minutes
Yeah.
and not ask me, not talk to me,
Yeah.
not tell me. And so Josh is showing up today to pull her from that and to video the other kids doing it, because I'm like, this is not concentration camp. You
Yeah,
know?
it's that's a surprising one. I'm surprised by that one.
Yeah. I keep saying I want 30 adult volunteers to go through the cycle of what our kids do every day at lunch. You know, being rushed and this and sit and eat and yell and quiet and this, and, you know, and then see how you feel later.
Well, that's interesting. That's about lunch, and I hear you. I think that's very, very interesting. And then the school experience, the quote academic or the whole curriculum. Or, is it? I'll reflect that your dad didn't look at report cards. And then, how are you experiencing the
Well,
academic side of life for your kids?
Very differently now, because Wyatt is at a different school. Wyatt is at Seidner, Morgan is at CFI. I really like the grades that Wyatt gets. I can see if he's a C- or a B+. I know exactly where he is, exactly what he needs to do. However, with Morgan, they have the at, below, and aboves. Well, there's a lot of ats, and there's never been a below, and there's really never been an above. And when I call and ask, you know, and then I get a note saying, oh, well, she's really struggling in math. Well, then that should not be a below, or, and then they don't give aboves because that's saved. You know, it's like on teacher evaluations, they don't give exemplary. Well, then why have it? So, yeah, so there are some issues of communication, But I mean, as parents, we're involved in that process and monitoring homework and signing on homework. That's a big thing that didn't have when I was a kid.
Okay, so is it daily or weekly?
It's weekly.
Okay.
You got to sign that homework, and
Okay, like a homework. My kids get a homework pack, like my
Yeah.
4th grader does.
yeah.
And so, yes, he did his homework, and I signed
Yeah.
off that he did. That's what your experience.
Yeah,
was.
and we
Okay.
didn't have to do that when I was a kid.
Did you do your homework? And
No, not really.
Okay.
No, not really. I was not the best student.
You mentioned that.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting. So it's just so funny, all the weird ironies.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't do your homework, but you were really smart, and you did get notice, which might not have happened at another time or place.
Right.
And then later you experienced, people noticed, but there's nothing they could do about it.
Right.
Or they had to do it on the side. So now you're a mom, and you're signing off on homework, but yet you're still kind of not knowing what's up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you said, she's struggling in math. I've been signing the homework.
Right. I've been signing it, and she's been at ATS the entire time, but no, I think yeah.
And to clarify, you chose a school that doesn't have grades.
I did.
And then, I'm not admonishing
Yeah,
you.
no,
I
no,
just,
it's
for the
true.
record, it's a school that was a difference that you
Yep.
chose. And Key that your dad went to, or your husband, sorry, your kid's dad went to, also didn't do grades, and
Right.
they don't do it now. Montessori, I have no idea what they do, but
I
I'm
don't
guessing. So you chose a school like that, and yet you're looking for something.
Yeah.
You're maybe.
Looking for a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then any other experiences about raising kids, memories or experiences?
I had, not this past Christmas, the Christmas before, I was at a Christmas gathering, and I happened to be with one of my friends from School 99.
Oh,
AT
back
program.
from your school.
Yeah.
Okay.
At her parents' house.
Okay.
And her older siblings, they also live in Irvington. So they were also bussed way out. Her older siblings went to 99 with my older brother.
Wait, what did you just say? Her siblings were bused way out? I didn't.
To 99.
Oh, because that was the AT program. Yep. Okay.
So her family, her siblings, they're Catholic, so there's 6 of them. They were all bussed out to 99 as well.
Okay.
And one of her siblings went to school with my brother, and then I went to school with the youngest of theirs. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, we were at a Christmas gathering.
As adults now.
As adults,
okay.
about a year and a half ago. Brought my kids, and so I'm there with all their kids, and my 6th grade teacher was there because we all keep in touch with her because she's just a really neat lady. She sat and talked to my son Wyatt for 5 minutes.
Okay.
And just talked to him and played with him with this little thing.
Yeah.
And before I left, she grabbed my hand. She says, "You know he's gifted, right?"
Yeah.
So here's this teacher who taught gifted and talented for years and years, and who could still, she's probably 80.
Isn't that neat?
Yeah, she spent 5 minutes with Wyatt and said he's gifted. And so I was always impressed by that of what teachers, how they know certain things that they know so quickly, and yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting. I should be interviewing teachers next.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, if you spend time with children, you ought to be learning something, right?
Right.
And she was learning just through a small interaction
Yep.
with a boy she just met. Something's going on.
Yeah, and I knew
I've
he
seen
was already
before.
being tested for Seidner at that moment. So I called her a couple months after we got the letter, and I said, "By the way," I said, "my son's going to the gifted program next year." And
Can I ask you about the gifted program? Did he get a tap on the shoulder, or do they ask parent? How do you get into that program?
What they do is the teacher kind of does an overall assessment of what kids they believe are showing signs of being gifted or needing more, and then they will do a small kind of assessment after the teacher recognizes which ones in class. So you have those 2 levels to kind of pass. After they do the smaller assessment, they contact parents and say, we have seen your child as a possibility for this school, and they will ask your permission to test them in like an hour and a half long test.
It's a special test.
Yep.
It's not based on any like I-steps or whatever.
No. But the teacher, part of the second step of evaluation is going through the teacher's grades and notes and whatnot, and making sure
That's pretty intense.
It is. And so then they do this hour and a half test that parents have to okay.
Yeah.
And then then they put those kids in order of how they did from top down, and they have a certain criteria. So they don't take the top 30,
Oh.
they take whoever has met this criteria level.
Okay.
So even if there's only 10, they only take 10. Even if they have room for 30, you still have to reach this level. Does that make sense?
Okay, so you have to reach a certain level. That's what matters.
Yeah.
It's not a quota.
Yeah, it's not we're going to take the top 50 kids. It's you
Right.
have to meet this criteria. And if there's more of you that meet this criteria, then it's going to be a first come, first served basis.
Wow. And do you know how many companies? See, now you're a board member, so now I'm really. Now I'm kind of curious. Do they do it? So it's every school gets to do this, right?
Yeah. Oh,
And-
yeah.
And then they're going by criteria. So, one school might have more than their share, but they say, hey, we got to fill the school from. It's from all over, isn't it?
It's from all over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the first year they did it, I was told it was I-Step. And I had a kid who didn't do, I don't think he did stellar on the I-Step, but anyway, as I know, things evolve, things change. And
It's not I-Step because they start in 2nd grade.
That's right.
And they don't even take I-Step.
That's right. Probably they didn't want my kid. And
You
there
can
was
also-
probably a reason.
You can ask to be tested at any time. I know parents who did not get kind of the friendly tap
Yeah.
to the next level, but said, I want my kid tested anyway.
Yeah, that's another interesting thing. Back in your day too, it's the school initiating it.
Yeah.
And it still is the school initiating
still
it.
is.
But a parent might hear about it.
Right.
If I'm understanding correctly, it's not like you send home notes to parents and say, hey, you want all your kids
Right,
tested?
right.
But
But if they hear about it and request it, And people outside the district as well may say, can I get my kid tested for the school? And we do that. Now they do fill with IPS students first, but then they're in the second tier.
Oh Lord, I don't know how anybody keeps track of all the stuff that goes
It's
on.
a mess.
Well, which part's a mess?
There's issues with that because, when I signed Sage up for CFI, I said, I want to sign her up. Here's my sheet.
Yeah.
Now pull her up. And pull her up in your system.
Okay.
And they did, and she wasn't listed as going to CFI because she wasn't connected to Morgan because they have different last names.
Oh.
Even though I'm the same parent.
Oh, yeah.
So I said, connect these two kids. So I knew,
So
thankfully I knew there was a glitch in the system of connecting kids with different last
Oh
names.
my gosh, we've got tons of kids with different last names.
I know. And that's why every year, when it comes to magnet time and CFI list or whatever list, people think they're number 2 and then they go to number 6. I'm like, why am I number 6? And I'm like, because they probably found siblings. Because they don't.
Oh, they found siblings.
Yeah,
Okay.
they found. I'm going to see who this is real quick. I'm sorry.
No, for most things, of course, I'll ask one more question and then I'll turn it over to you if there's anything else you want to ask. And that was educational issues. Now you're a parent now, you're not a kid, and you're a board member, so golly, you must be aware of everything. But what would you say are the educational issues of your day?
Of course, a big one right now is the testing.
Okay.
Are we teaching to the test? Are we teaching to the kid who takes the test? So that's a concern. I went to a couple meetings and listened to parents and.
Oh, like one of the meeting I was at.
Yep.
Okay.
And my kid Morgan, I guess, Wyatt's not taking ISTEP this year. I talked to her about how testing makes her feel, and if it made her feel so bad she didn't want to take it, she didn't have to, and just kind of talk to her about that. And she actually likes to take it, so I said, okay, that's fine. But I also support wholeheartedly parents that don't and want to not have their child take it. So in education now, I think that's a big one.
Okay.
I think that in a couple of years, we're going to really feel the pain of the oversaturation of choice. And
Interesting.
yeah, I
Insight.
really think that we are not going to have enough bodies to fill these buildings. And we just, none of them, I think we're going to have so many not succeeding than a few choice succeeding. So
Okay, so I think I heard 2 issues. One sounded logistical. When you open up buildings and say you can go wherever you want to go, there's not a mass.
Right.
It could be, I love this little school over here. But then the next thing you said, I think about there'll be a lot failing. Is that about choice or is that about?
Well, I think they'll fail because they can't afford to run because there won't be
Right.
enough people in the school. When you have,
Okay.
a school that can, in one area that can hold 5,000 kids, but only 3,000 kids live there, that's a problem. And I think schools are popping up now because it's now becoming a business that we're going to have too many schools. And
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think people are saying it that. I don't hear it said that often, and it is really interesting.
Yeah. And I think that's going to happen in IPS too. I think we're oversaturating ourselves with magnets. And
Oh, okay. Yeah, I kind of included, in my head I was including IPS in that because it's in this geographic region that shares space with a lot of other choices.
Yeah.
And so, if my school is smaller or the population is low, how do I support the building anymore?
Right.
And it's a building of people, teachers, resources.
Right.
And it's so funny when they closed, not funny in a good way, when they closed what's the word? Economies of scale?
Yeah.
It's like, well, you like it here, but we need, isn't that the reason that they closed the school?
Yeah.
Because it's like, if we consolidate you all in this building, it'll be cheaper to run.
Right.
Okay.
And then they couldn't sell the school.
They couldn't what?
They couldn't sell the school.
Oh, when they close a building,
Yeah, they tried to
it's not
sell
like
it off.
somebody's saying, I want that.
Yeah.
It was interesting, one of the schools you talked about first, now I'm going to apologize if it was 99 or 85.
85.
No, 85. it's a business or it's a couple of businesses, and that was really
Yeah.
interesting to hear. Because school buildings, in my mind, are just school buildings.
Oh, this
You know?
they did a magnificent job, and they actually, you walk in and it still says boys' room or principal, but it's a
then-
beautiful building. You know,
Yeah.
offices. Josh actually worked in an office there for years.
Okay.
His company.
And so that it's just, and I know I'm actually quite young too. I'm only 48. You know, that I haven't seen it all. There are a lot of buildings in this city that used to be school
They
buildings,
used
and I
to be
didn't know it.
schools. Yep.
And I've met some. It's on 38th. There's one, and it does look like a school
Yeah.
building, but I didn't get it.
It's like a Taco Bell. You always know it used to be Taco Bell.
That's
Yeah.
right. Okay, well, anything that you wanted to say, or you think is a good question to ask of people about growing up in school or going to school? You said a lot of really great, interesting stuff.
Well, thank you. No, I think this is a great idea. I'm very excited.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah, it was so great, Annie. I'll turn it off.
Okay.
Give you a break. It's a lot, you know.